All right, welcome everybody to our first lesson, our first part, I should say, of lesson 1. We're going to today talk about converting between words and symbols. So this next slide here, this is an important slide, and this is something you should definitely take some time and really look at. These are different words that we use to represent different math symbols. So I'd make sure to read through these. I'm just going to hit a few quick highlights. So for instance, if you see the word sum, you should know that that means addition. If you see the word decrease by or minus, right, that should be subtraction. One that we see a lot that you might not be super familiar with is this word quotient. Quotient means division. For multiplication, if you see of or product, those are words that indicate multiplication along with all those other ones in that multiplication symbol. And here are some words that represent equal to. Again, I would read through all these words. These are things that you need to be familiar with. On the bottom here, we have parenthesis words and turnaround words. Let's first talk about parenthesis words. So parenthesis words are used if we're trying to describe something like this here. Let's say we have 3 parentheses x plus 2. So what we're saying is we have to multiply 3 by what is in our parentheses. So oftentimes students like to say, well, it's 3 times x plus 2. But if you say just 3 times x plus 2 and I was writing that down, what you told me, I would think, well, 3 times x plus 2. And these two things are not the same. So when there's parentheses, we have to indicate that so that we say it correctly or we have somebody write it correctly based on what we say. So if I wanted to say what I saw on this first line here, if I get rid of that down there, it says I can either say 3 times the difference of or twice the sum of plus the difference of. Really, I just kind of stick with this first one here, times the difference of, and I just change it to, if it's addition instead of difference, I would just say sum. So for this one here, I'd say 3 times the, since it's addition, it's x plus 2, I'm going to say sum of a number x and 2. I say a number x because x is what we call a variable. It represents some unknown number. We don't know what it is right now, but we just know that it represents a number. So I always like to put that it is a number so that people know that it is a number. Otherwise, people think, well, what is x, right? Well, we want to indicate that it is a number. So I'd say 3 times the sum of a number x and 2. Again, I can't say 3 times x plus 2 because that's not the same thing. The next thing to touch on here is these turnaround words, and these are important words that you have to memorize. There's 2 of them, than and from. The reason why we have to know this is, let's say I say 3 less number x. If I was to go ahead and convert that to numbers here instead of words, I would say 3 less means subtraction. So maybe I'd even add that up here. It's not in our list, but hopefully we know that less would mean subtraction. Less a number x. So that's how I would convert. However, if I did this exact same example, but I changed it a little bit and I said 3 less than a number x. Than is a turnaround word, which means I would just flip the order. So instead of 3 minus x, than is turnaround, so that means I have to do x minus 3. And that would be my final answer. Again, always look for those turnaround words because they switch the order of your number and variable. Again, take a good look at this list here. So if we just do a couple quick examples, so this one wants us to go from this algebraic expression, or it wants us to find, the algebraic expression for the word phrase. What I always do, so if I start with number 1, I look for turnaround words. So I see the word than. It says 32 more than a number x. More, you should be thinking, well, more is addition. Since than is a turnaround word, sorry, I didn't say number x, this is number n. I just used a different variable. That doesn't matter. I know that if than wasn't there, 32 would go first, but since than is there, n has to go first, plus 32. If I go down to 2 here, again, I look for a turnaround word. I don't see one. I don't see than or from. I sometimes like to make notes, just like I did on the first one. Less, I know, is subtraction. So 58, you just go in the order I see. Less is minus a number n. For 3, it says 8 times a number n. Again, no turnaround words, no than or from. Times I know is multiplication. So I'd say 8 times n. Other ways you can write multiplication, you can say 8n. You can just have them touching. When a number and a variable touching, that means multiplication. I could say 8 parentheses n. That also works. Oftentimes students like to do this because I know that's how you learn multiplication to begin with. I'm going to say, though, I don't want to see this simply because that x for multiplication looks like a variable, and once we get into algebra, we use a lot of variables, so we don't want to use that. Instead, if you wanted to, you could put like a little star. That's okay, that's multiplication, but please stay away from that x. Last one here, it says the quotient of a number n and 5. Again, I don't see a turnaround word. Quotient, that's one I told you to keep in mind, that's division. So the quotient of a number n and 5, I could say n divided by 5. N goes first, right, because that's what they say first here, and there's no turnaround word. Other ways you could write division, you could do n over 5. That means division. You could do n divided by 5. Right? Those are all ways you can write division. Typically, we like this one here, but obviously any of those would work. All right, last 4 examples before we finish out the video. It says, what word phrase can you use to represent this algebraic expression? Hopefully you were thinking, gosh, there could be multiple ways, right? And that's true. Like for this first one, 3x, they're touching, so I know that means multiplication. I can go up to multiplication, and I can use any of these words to indicate that it's multiplication. I generally like to not get very fancy, and I just use the ones that I'm most used to. So 3 and x, I think, well, that's 3 times a number x. Number 2, I'm going to have you try that one on your own. But if we look at number 3, there's a little bit more to it, but just go left to right. So first off, I see 3 and t, again touching. So it's very similar to 1. I'd say 3 times a number t. Right, that's my variable in this case. Then I see the minus sign, right? So I'm just going to say minus 4. Or you could say less 4. Or subtract 4, right? Yours might not look the same as mine. That's fine because we have lots of words to represent our symbols. Last one here. Again, we see parentheses, so you have to use your parentheses words. You can't just say 2 times x minus 4 because that's not the same thing, because it's 2 times everything in that parentheses. So for this one, I'm going to say 2 times, since it's subtraction, I'm going to say the difference of, difference of a number, right? We want to let people know that our variable represents a number, of a number x and 4. So here is our first little video, just a little intro to converting between words and symbols. Again, please take a look at these words here, and if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks, everybody.